Dreams. Written by Jean Harding and read by Claudette Evans. The phones in all the offices were ringing as Marjorie raced up the stairs. She was late arriving at Kensington Social Services this Monday morning, due to the unusually thick fog for this time of year. As she reached the door, her supervisor, Mrs. Bailey, met her, looking rather flustered. "Don't take your coat off, Marjorie. There is an emergency in Hyde Park. An old house has appeared overnight, standing on the grass, and the police want a social services present." The police, holding the crowd of onlookers already gathered back, parted to let Mrs. Bailey's car in. Sure enough, there was a large stone early Victorian mansion with a strip of overgrown courtyard in front of it, all looking rather neglected. "There's a batty old woman in there," exclaimed an army corporal as he directed them to go straight over. Mrs. Bailey seemed to be taking it all so calmly, as if it was just an ordinary case. But Marjorie felt excited and apprehensive all at the same time. The inside of the house was full of beautiful antique furniture and paintings. But as they were hurried through the corridor, they could hear a female voice protesting loudly. The contrast of the dining room they were ushered into was unbelievable. Everything was filthy, walls and furniture covered in cobwebs, and on the long dining table lay a mouldy, dried-up remains of a feast. At the head of the table was an old woman, fighting to free herself from the restraining arms of two policemen. "Unhand me, you villains! How dare you unhand me?" she demanded. Mrs. Bailey told the police to let go of the woman and motioned them to go out of the room. Now Marjorie could see her crinoline gown was made of satin, richly embroidered with pearls, once probably white, but now faded to a creamy yellow and was frayed around the edges. On her head was a tattered veil, and her face, skeletal and waxy, matched the rest. Marjorie shook her head. "This can't be for real," she thought. "I must be dreaming. It must have been that cheese on toast I had for supper." The woman had regained some of her composure, drew herself up to her full height, and declaimed in a haughty voice, "You are in my house uninvited. State your intentions." "We're here to help you," answered Mrs. Bailey in her best soothing tone. "What is your name?" "And why should I need help, pray? I am Miss Havisham, and this is my house, Status House, and my servants do all I command. And what are you, pray, male or female? You are strangely clad." The supervisor turned to Marjorie, shrugging her shoulders, saying softly, "We'll go along with it for now. I wonder where she escaped from." Addressing Miss Havisham, she continued, "We are female, and we are from social services. We are here to help you." "I need no help, madam. But who are you that those strange men with sticks heed your every wish? And is your strange mode of dress some new fashion in London? Surely the Queen does not approve of these exposed legs?" Mrs. Bailey could feel control of the situation going away from her, so she asked, "How did you and your house get here in Hyde Park, London? Who is behind this elaborate hoax?" "Hyde Park? This is my park, madam. I am no hoax. What do you mean?" "Come off it. We've all read the book by Dickens, and you are not fiction. You are flesh and blood." "You mystify me, madam. I have not heard of this Mr. Dickens. Where did you say I was? In London?" Miss Havisham moved to the windows at the end of the room. Looking out, she saw surrounding troops and police. The next window showed her cars moving on the road. She gasped and stumbled. Marjorie thought she was about to faint, but she recovered, sitting down on a nearby chair, saying, I have surely been asleep a long time. Why did not Estelle tell me the world had changed so much? Mrs. Bailey muttered to her assistant. Keep her talking while I arrange a medic to give her a sedative and find a hospital to take her. I've not made up my mind whether she is play acting or whether she really thinks she is Miss Havisham. If it is all an act, she's a brilliant actress, and the set certainly looks authentic. Marjorie giggled. Mrs. Bailey gave her a stern look as she left. Miss Havisham was watching the people and traffic out of the window and saw Mrs. Bailey drive away. How do these carriages move without horses? They are mechanical, with an engine, replied Marjorie. Miss Havisham frowned, then, can ladies really order important men around? Ladies are equal to men in most things now. They can be a member of Parliament, a banker, or run their own company. Ladies can own their own money nowadays, even if they are married. She could see the excitement building in the old woman. How could these wonderful things happen without me knowing? I've wasted so much time working on Estelle to get my revenge. How wrong I was. I will join this modern world, though how I got here I do not know. Come, summon your horseless carriage and take me to the emporium that sells these fashion clothes, but do not go fast until I get used to the speed. Miss Havisham picked up her jewelled purse, swept down the corridor, out through the door, and vanished. Marjorie, who had been following, could not believe what she'd just seen, but then registered the alarm on people's faces, turned to see Status House slowly fading away. Of course, there was a government inquiry by a panel of scientists that laboured for 2 years but could not come to a unanimous conclusion. But Marjorie had been pondering the happenings herself. How did it get there in the first place? She knew that shock waves and sound waves could travel through the earth at fantastic speed, far faster than a tsunami, and trigger events thousands of miles away. But thoughts? Because, after all, Miss Havisham and Status House were pictures only in Mr. Charles Dickens' mind, and from years ago. So, did time behave in the same way? She wondered if it was a hologram, but dismissed the idea. She knew that in September 2014, a team of medical scientists had proved that transference of thought was possible. It was logical that Miss Havisham could not exist in our time because Mr. Dickens could not imagine it. But how, then, were they able to interact with her? She sighed, and then remembered a scientific truth quoted by Professor Brian Cox in his book Human Universe. All scientific why questions end with, I don't know, if you push hard enough, because we do not know everything there is to know. Marjorie then said to herself, maybe by the time I am old, I will have found out, and resolved to join the Open University.